Good evening, all.
How you doing, Jim?
Good.
Hello, hello.
Hi, DL.
Good evening.
Hi there.
Marty?
Thank you again, John, for those little video clips. Those were nice.
John, I just noticed your background there. It looks like you're not in a Zoom meeting. It looks like it's an old meeting at St. Vincent.
Yeah, that's the plan. Listen a second, let me turn off my camera here for a second because you're in that picture. I was going through.
Oh, that was one of our
Yep,
stations.
I was going through some old photos in Lightroom, and that one was taken at the February meeting in 2020. I'd love to be able to get back to those kind of meetings and just the interaction with the people and doing stuff. Yeah, we haven't done that for a couple of years now.
Well, that might have been our last live get-together meeting.
I don't know if it was the last one.
It
But I
was.
remember.
Yeah, it
Was
was.
it?
Oh,
It
yeah.
was the
March,
the
because
last.
that was my first meeting ever
Uh,
and last.
well, like I say, Jim, I ran across it and I said, okay, I'm going to use that as a background. We'll put that up for a while. People
That's a
can
good
enjoy
one.
that.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Hey, Brian, everybody's just trying to stay warm, I think.
Yeah, I know we didn't have any heat at work today, most of the day.
Oh.
We got a expensive state-of-the-art brand new building and heaters and great big things on the roof and everything. And they neglected to check and see how much propane the 3 huge heaters on the roof would use per hour. They put tanks in for about 500,000 BTUs, and we use a little over 1 million BTUs. So it can't keep up.
Wow, and tomorrow's supposed to be colder than today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they brought another 1,000-gallon tank today for propane, but they got to put 3 in a total. We have 2 now. They have to get another one put in to be able to keep up with our heaters, to be able to keep up with the use, the need, I guess.
My question would be, how many insane people are looking for vehicles on this frigid day?
Quite a few.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Mm-mm.
I think when I left at 4:30, we had sold 3
Wow.
so far. So
Are you having trouble keeping an inventory, Brian?
yes. Yep. We are almost selling them as fast as we get them. a lot of the vehicles, when they show up, they're already sold.
This
Um,
afternoon, I spent the afternoon swimming.
you say swimming?
Yep, I said swimming.
No, obviously it wasn't outside.
Obviously not.
Because you're here.
It was too cold to be swimming outside. No, I swam 26 laps in the pool. So that's what you do on a cold, rigid, snowy day.
Mm. Well, guys, we're about 7 after. We might as well get started. As far as any kind of business going on, I don't really have much of anything. I know we got a show coming up. There was a very nice prospectus with a whole bunch of information that just came out recently. If you didn't receive that email, let me know. Jim, I'm assuming you're the one to put that together. Nice job.
Yeah, thanks.
So we got that. The deadline on that's what, March 1st?
March 1st for the image submission.
For image submission. So if you're planning on participating in the Westmoreland Art Show, or Westmoreland Museum Show, I should say, make sure you get your stuff in and don't be late, because deadlines are deadlines for this one. We won't be extending deadlines like we do in the past for other things. So other than that, I really don't have anything. We do have a photo walk coming up at the end of the month. That is going to be at the Heinz History Center. I am very much looking forward to that one. So I'm hoping to see all of you there. Did anyone make it up to the photo walk at Lynn Run? I did not.
I saw Alan was there because he posted a photo.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't go up there, so I had to work. But
I went out. I had to stay home and stay warm.
well, if I had not had to work, I would have went, but Saturday's a tough day for me to take off of work. So anyhow, we do have the walk coming up. That'll be Heinz History Center. I'll put information out for that. I had a little bit ahead of time. And I think that's about all I have as far as any business. Anyone have anything they want to bring up before we get into the meeting part? No. All right. Jim, I'm assuming you got some news and stuff like that for us?
Yeah, I do, Brian. It shouldn't take over long.
No, you can take as long as you want.
Okay. All right. Let me share my screen. Share sound. Okay, can you see my Zoom screen there?
Yep.
Forward with confidence. I didn't hear. Okay. Let me put
Yeah, I got you. Yep.
Okay, I just want to make sure. All right. Oh, and you know what? Before I get started, something that we started last month as a request from one of our members based on the survey is I want to post the links in chat here. So give me a minute, if you don't mind. Okay, could someone just verify that those are in chat now?
Yep, they're there.
Okay, thank you.
Rex, did you get your audio fixed?
I'm sorry?
Oh, Rex texted or messaged. He said he didn't have any audio. I was wondering if he got it. Doesn't look like it. He's not saying anything. Okay, good, Jim.
Okay. So this first item, and we've been talking about this for the last 2 years, how the mirrorless cameras are making inroads on DSLRs. And in this case, and I'm not a Canon user, so I'm not really familiar with them, but Canon apparently came out with an announcement here late last month that they haven't established a particular date and time, but they're probably not going to produce any new, what they're calling flagship DSLRs. That they will have some entry-level DSLRs, but from a flagship standpoint, the intention is to go with mirrorless from here on out. So that kind of confirms what seems to be, or seems to have been taking place over the last couple of years. I don't know if any Canon users have any comments on this or have any insight into it or know more than that.
I don't have any insight to Canon, but it looks that Nikon's kind of going the same direction with putting more and more into their mirrorless cameras with that new Z9 that's coming and stuff like that. That it doesn't surprise me, put it that way.
Yeah. Did you order your Z9 yet, Brian?
No, but I'm on a list right now for when it becomes available through B&H. It's not
So
available.
It's not available yet, you're saying?
No, I haven't been able to find it anywhere yet. The only ones that are out there seem to be ones that were shipped out for people to run their test with and stuff like that. So I haven't seen one available to buy yet, but I'm pretty sure we're going to buy one of those.
Okay.
And then I'll need a new place to live because I won't be able to afford my rent at my house. I'll be sleeping in a tent, but I'll have one hell of a camera.
Yeah. Is that like a 5,000 plus type purchase?
It's a little over $5,000 for the body.
Yeah. Well, I guess the good news is you can get a mount adapter to use your old lens.
Yes, the mount adapter will work with almost all of, actually, I think now all of the older lenses. So my Ds and my D lenses was the question before when the Z5 and the Z6 came out. So that should, this new one should work with those lenses with no problem. So that's the reason I'm considering it.
Yeah. All righty, move on to the next one. So, we, again, for the last couple of years, starting, I think, probably with Luminar, and obviously Lightroom and Photoshop have jumped into it recently, but the use of artificial intelligence to assist in post-processing, this probably wouldn't apply to any of us today, but I thought it was worth talking about a little bit. I assume it's pronounced Imageni AI. This is a relatively new app, and it's primarily intended for, like, I'll call them bulk users, like a wedding photographer or an event photographer who comes back from a shoot with possibly thousands of photos. And just spending the time post-processing them becomes a chore, if you will. So this company, you can sign up with, and I'll scroll down later to see what the cost is. But what they're doing is their AI feature learns how you like to personally post-process your photos. And so you upload to the cloud somewhere or another for this service to analyze how you've post-processed previously. So you may send up a couple of thousand photos, and the AI computer system reviews your photos and comes up with a way that it thinks you like to post-process your photos. So then if you sign up for the service, you can upload photos. The system will process them for you, and then you can download them and use them. Now there's some limits. Apparently it won't do, it'll only do global adjustments. You know, it can't, it doesn't know how to apply a gradient filter somewhere or do a luminosity mask on something, but the basic fundamental global edits it will do for you. Now, while I don't think that maybe is because it is kind of costly just to kind of go down. I suspect none of us would really want to utilize this thing unless you really were heavy in the business. Somewhere down here. This guy who wrote this article did a test with it, and he said the AI worked relatively well as far as kind of interpreting how he did his post-processing. There's a flat, you might not be able to see this. I can't, hold on here, I gotta stop away. Okay, somehow I can't seem to scroll up and down on this thing since I zeroed in on it. Let me try this again. So a monthly payment of $7, and then you basically pay by the photo, if you will, to do the editing itself. So I'm not sure how reasonable that is, but what I wanted to mention is that although we might not utilize this ourselves, you could see this technology coming to a post-processing app that in fact you do use somewhere down the road. You know, right now there's obviously automatic adjustments that you can push a button and it'll do some initial edits for you. But what's different with this application is it's tailored to and learns from how you post-process your photos. So this could be a sign of coming attractions for Lightroom or Photoshop, other types of post-processing apps that you might use.
Well, how does this one work? Does this one work off Photoshop or Lightroom, or it just takes two pictures and analyzes the differences and goes from there?
Wish I could tell you exactly, Rob. I'm not quite sure, but it's currently like a plugin used for Photoshop and Lightroom.
Okay.
And so you upload your processed photos. I don't know if it's looking at the settings you're using or simply the results of how you post-process the photo. That's a good question. I really don't know. I don't think it
It's
really.
an interesting concept because, you know, as you know, you process pictures differently. Some pictures you do similarly, but there's some unique things you do artistically. Would you want to feed all that into the computer, or do you only want to feed in the ones that are consistent? I mean, there's some other questions to ask too on how you use them. It's an intriguing proposition.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, plus, if it's only doing global adjustments, you can do one image, make a preset, and then apply that to as many images as you want. Why would you pay for that?
Yeah, you can do that in Lightroom. There's no difference.
Well, that's
Yeah,
true. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, the advantage of it would be if you had a bunch of, kind of headshots, if you will, right? Or wedding shots or something like that, and you process them all the same type of lighting, same type of thing, that would be helpful. But without local adjustments, I don't know how valuable that would be, because if you're a wedding photographer, a lot of your money is made when you smooth the skin out and do things like that. So if you're not doing local adjustments, you're probably not getting your money's worth.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But that's probably the next step, right? I mean, these things like little Lightroom came out with limited capability, and capabilities have been added on consistently throughout the last decade or so, and continue to do so. So I suspect this will be the same.
If you look where, like in the middle there between the two payments, it says AI color correction per month. And then if you look down in the lower right, it tells you about cropping as another penny per photo, and then
And straightening is a penny.
straightening is
Yeah,
another
that's interesting.
amount.
I hadn't even
So-
noticed that before.
So I don't know that I would want to pay that to do that. It doesn't seem like it's cost effective.
Well, that's what I prefaced my comments. I don't think unless you were really just swamped, like with a wedding or an event, how you could justify paying for that service at this point in time.
Interesting stuff, though. Usually groundbreaking things come out like this, prohibitively expensive for the most common people. And then over time, things improve and suddenly it's available to the masses. So
Yeah.
Something to keep your eye on. It's interesting, Jim. Thank you.
So sometime over the past year, I remember one of our discussions during the SWG meeting was about NFTs, and just a reminder, that's the non-fungible tokens. This is the process where rather than, John has, informed us a couple of times where he's been able to sell a print online, and, some of us have had prints sold at shows. In this case, what you're selling is not your physical print, but literally an electronic image file that the buyer can do what they want with. And one of the links, we're not going to go into detail this evening on NFTs, but if you want to remind yourself what that was all about, the next link after this one is an introduction. This is NFTs, an introduction and crash course for photographers. So you can kind of re-educate yourself on the concept behind NFTs. But what was interesting at the time when we brought it up, and again, roughly a year ago or so, there were a few photographers who were starting to use NFTs, and they were getting some big time bucks for offering some of their artwork for sale. This would be both photographers and different artists, paintings, sculpture, or whatever. But in this case, it sounds like it's becoming a little bit more mainstream in that they didn't announce a schedule, but apparently Instagram is planning on establishing a service that, as the title here says, allows users to buy, sell, and showcase NFTs. So this, at least in my mind, seems like a big step forward where, John offers his work on the, you have to remind me, John, what's that service?
Fine Art America.
Fine Art America. John's next step could be offering his work on Instagram via an NFT. So something worthwhile, I guess, paying attention to. This makes it sound like it'll be relatively easy for you or I to be able to do it rather than have to research and kind of do every step by step on your own. This will just become a normal day-to-day process to participate in if you'd like. I have no idea what the cost would be.
Jim, was there, in that article, was there any indication of what these NFTs are selling for?
I don't think in this article there is. This is just basically telling you that Instagram was planning on following through with developing this for their platform. No, there's no information relative to pricing.
Well, it might be worth doing a web search on and see what that whole thing's looking like.
I'm sure
Definitely do your research. Definitely do your research on what NFTs are and how they can be, a lot of them can be just become scams. Do your research. That's all I'm going to say about them.
Not to sound remedial. In general, what is an NFT? I know it's a non-fungible token, but what does that mean? What do you get for it? Is it just a file?
So, and again, going back to using John as an example, John sells a print online, or somebody buys one of our prints at a show. They have a physical copy of it, and that's basically all they really own. However, if John were to put an image up for sale as an NFT online, the purchaser basically has what mine is, and I think you can, there's different levels of, like, I'll call it copyright and ownership. And oh shoot, what's the term when you get a feedback money from like a copyright,
Residual?
residual?
A royalty.
Royalties. All those are negotiable via an NFT contract. But in essence, what you're doing is you're allowing someone to buy your image and use it for their purposes. They could literally make prints and hang them on the wall. I assume they could make prints and sell them if they would like to.
So what it sounds like is a more legally contracted way to sell just a standard JPEG file, essentially, right? That's what
In
you're talking
effect,
about,
yeah.
right?
And the other thing, and again, some DL might be our best bet. Maybe Brian's a little more familiar with this as well. The technology, it's called blockchain technology. And so even though someone has purchased that NFT, it's basically the world knows that they have ownership of this thing now. There's a somehow that file is encrypted for their use. It's just like they had it on their home computer and could use it for whatever purpose they would. But by the same token, someone else wouldn't be able to get access to it, is my understanding.
Okay, so in other words, if I bought your JPEG, I could just send it to anybody and, right? I mean, if I run through this stuff, but I could do that with an NFT.
I think it depends on the particular NFT contract on what the buyer can and can't do.
Right.
And what you can and can't do about it once you've sold the rights to it.
Okay. Thank you. That really was helpful.
I would suggest, as at least a starting point, is the link for this article here is, it gives you a little bit more of a summary, I think, of what it's all about and a little bit about how it works. So that could be helpful.
I have some info. I looked it up on Safari, cost of photo as NFT, and I don't know if it's going to help much, but it says pricing your images on photography NFT marketplaces is totally up to you. However, at the time of writing, November 2021, the average price for photography NFT in a collection is around 0.25 ETH. So I'm right back where we started. I couldn't find where the ETH is explained. But whatever you do in an NFT, apparently the cost factor, the naming of cost is using the term ETH.
That, and I don't know what it's
Ethereum.
for, Rex, but I suspect it must have to do with like the Bitcoin type currency, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
H is Ethereum.
Ethereum. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. That's one of the brokers for.
Oh, okay. It's a company that handles it. Okay, the equivalent of the bank or something like that.
Yeah. I
Okay.
guess
Ethereum is a currency, cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I heard that. Mm-hmm. Cryptocurrency.
Okay. So this one here, this organization, C2PA, is coming out with a, I think this is basically just a standard, if you will, on how to assure the authenticity of a photo. And if you go through and read this, Adobe is part of this. And I remember we talked about this briefly, again, sometime within the last year or so. But Adobe was trying to develop a system where I assume it's like within the metadata of your image that it would be able to authenticate you as the creator of the image. And this is taking it a step further where it's adding information on, like, and I could be misinterpreting this, but for instance, what image software did you use to post-process the image? And I didn't realize this, but there's a link in this article too, and Adobe apparently has built into Photoshop this content credentials. And since I don't have Photoshop, I can't direct you to it. Brian, maybe you want to do this possibly. I'm not sure if it tells you where it's at or not, but you can attach this content credential to your image if you wanted to, like, upload it and use it on Facebook or Instagram or some other social media. And I guess it kind of prevents the image from being stolen and misused. But it's available now in this beta format. Here it is. So preferences, technology preview, content credentials to enable the feature. So if you want to learn about it someday or try it, give it a go and see what happens. It's about all I can tell you. But I think one of the reasons for having it is I think it's particularly applicable, like, to news agencies that they're not posting photos that have been massaged somehow that would mislead a viewer on what it was they were actually looking at in the image. Okay, no comments on that one. Move on. This one, Rex suggested we do. Rex, do you want to lead the discussion on this, or you just want me to go through the photos?
No, yeah, you probably have a better control of it. It's just like it says right in the headline there, best shots of 2021 that were on Flickr and selected by the Flickr staff, I guess. And there are the different categories. So it runs pretty much the same as any competition might. And if you will go through them, I was attracted to it, first of all, because of the very first one, how the photographer had, his specialty is birds. And he happened to catch these birds settling on a tree. And it was the layout of how the birds settled that looked almost like the leaves of the tree. And so I thought that anyone that might be interested in seeing the collection, Flickr is something that we used some time ago. Maybe some people are new to it. The old timers all know it, that we shifted away from. I still use it. I use it as a storage, as I mentioned to you, Jim. And I also use it to occasionally talk to other photographers. I can still go back and see a lot of Paul Lewis. His street work is on there, beautiful black and white work, some here too. So if you just go through it, we can enjoy what the photographers that like to post to Flickr can do.
Okay, thanks, Rex. And by the way, I still use Flickr as well. I just, few images at a time from a shoot I'll put up there, so. Yeah.
I use it for a library. I mean, yeah, for a library, for albums. I'm able to break them down into the different albums. So I've got all the birds in one, all the cars in another, etc. and people photography, etc.
That is a cool photo. So this says it's the open category.
Mhm.
Give us have the opportunity to take that photo.
If I remember correctly, the photographer had a good friend that belonged to a flying club, and he worked on him for over a year to get on board just to get some pictures. And the guy finally caved in and invited him on board. The aircraft, I think, is a Texan, AT-6 Texan trainer, and he was out with a team, and he happened to capture this photograph from the rear seat.
So I think we could kind of use a partial photo critique here, Rex. I'm pretty sure that the horizon is not straight on this photo.
Yeah, but I think he had to be in line with the aircraft ahead of him.
I understand.
Usually this position, I don't know, maybe some people know or don't know, but usually your leader is the guy down below you at the back watching what you do. So if you get out of line, he can bring you back.
Interesting.
The Blue Angels do it too. Their leader usually flies the last plane and back and down a little lower in a formation, multi-aircraft formation.
People category.
This is Canadian photographer. I'm trying to remember these stories. I just looked at it for a moment. This is a gentleman, he calls him Duke in this, I think. But he made friends with him, another Canadian, and he has photographed him over the years. And the guy likes being photographed, so he keeps coming back. And he turned this into a very classic painterly look.
Nice.
If you have the link right there, it's probably more enjoyable on your own time to go through, and it gives a pretty good explanation of why the photograph was taken, how it was done, and a little bit about the photographer's background.
I don't know why this reminds me of this, but so this is going to be a little bit of change of subject, but I think it's a matter of just like perspective and compositional comment. In this photo, it's really unique the way she's looking, and it's almost like she's looking through the mask to a certain extent. But the Pennsylvania State Forest and Parks Foundation has an annual photo contest. And those of you who get the Tribune Review would have seen an article on that sometime earlier this week. And they published some of the photos from the contest winners. And one happened to be Claire Kazmarek, which some of you might know used to be a member of WPS. And she specializes in photos up in the Laurel Mountains. And she has a really nice one that was one of the contest winners. But another photo, and there was a copy of it in the paper. It was from Coal Run Falls. And Pat and I had been there sometime last year. I forget what time of the year. And there wasn't a whole, it must have been in the summer because there wasn't a whole lot of water flowing on the waterfall. But where someone would typically set up to take a photo of the waterfall, at least where I was, and it seemed like a typical location. I did notice right immediately behind me, there was a tree with a root kind of coming out from the side. And there was enough room to kind of look underneath that root. And at the time I was there, I never really get paid other than just noticing it, didn't pay any more attention to it. But this winning image, the photographer got down on his belly, put his camera basically down underneath the tree root, and took a shot of the waterfall with the image being framed by the tree root on the side and over the top, and with dead leaves on the bottom. And it was like I recognized where it was immediately, and it just, I would have never thought to have taken that shot. But it's interesting. Everyone, approaches composition from a different angle. But anyway, this photo reminded me of that. I knew it got off track. That is pretty cool looking.
One of the things I either forgotten or just never knew, that Flickr actually has competitions. And this kind of stirred my interest back into maybe looking into it to do something along those lines. So I'm thinking the same thing. Another reason why I thought let's show this is that if you're familiar with Flickr, you might want to try this. I'm going to guess that it's probably one of the easier ones as far as the number of hoops that you have to jump through.
What do you mean by that, Rex?
All of the qualifications that it has, all of the different categories. I think there's every category you can think of here. I'd have to go back through it myself. I don't have it up on the other screen right now. But there's all these different categories for you to choose from. It isn't like it simply has to be in a specific area like the heritage photograph requirements. They're very specific. They have to be followed exactly. Whereas here you have an opportunity to really let go. You can use your imagination.
Like the lighting in this one.
Mm-hmm. I think another thing that's crossing my mind right now is a perfect example of when you carry your camera, you have your camera with you, and you see something that you think, hey, this could be a possibility, and you just grab your camera and you start working with it. And it doesn't have to be that you had to drive to a specific place and do a certain thing. It's just what you carry with you. And you can, and if you see something in any one of those categories, an aircraft flies overhead, if it's aircraft photography, if it's unusual weather, you shoot the weather. If it's architectural, you shoot the architectural. This one kind of reminds me of a cross between a street photograph and an architectural. It's an interesting combination. And look where she is in the lower right-hand corner. I don't know if that falls on anybody, but the object in the lower right-hand corner? No.
Well,
Okay.
and she's carrying something red, a red basket or handbag or whatever that matches the lighting as well.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I'd risk my camera unless it was a waterproof one.
And that's it.
Mhm. Yeah. That's the category. That's the lead of the categories. You can actually go into each one of those categories. So there's more. There's much more there, but that's the lead off images for each of those categories.
Okay. Well, thanks
There's
for
more.
that, Rex.
Sure. I thought that might help fill in the evening.
Those are nice.
Thanks.
Okay. I'm going to stop my share, Brian.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Rex, as well. That was a
Mhm.
nice addition. All right. So I guess it's my turn, huh?
Yep.
What was we talking about tonight? I'm kidding.
Am I sharing my little
Yes, go ahead.
thing today?
Sure.
All right, it's just two videos. One is like they were doing special effects in the snow, and then the other one is different ideas for a snowy day, or like, you know, different tricks. And hold on one second. That's I can do this. Maybe not. Working?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, can you hear it? Get a buff. Oh, don't do that.
No effects with my camera. Now, 21 LED laser flashlight. This is a huge flashlight. It's very good for light painting landscapes when you're doing photography at nighttime. So, I have my camera right here. On a tripod. You can see it's just getting soaked in snow right now. Shutter speed is at 5 seconds. The ISO is at 800. And the aperture is at 2.8. Now, what we're going to do is take a picture. We're going to flash the flashlight down that road while the exposure is taking place. And when you do that, you get the result where you can see the trails of the snow falling down to the ground. I'll show you another effect that you can do. What you can do is put it in manual focus, turn your flash on, and you'll see what the result is like. So let's see that right now. The flash there. Take the picture. Throw some flashlight in there too if you want to. Now you picture. Get the stationary snowflakes falling, the frozen ones, and you also get the long exposure. I'm going to put my camera on. I'm out there. Take a picture of myself. I'm going to put it on 10 seconds. ISO 400. All right, let's go. I'm going to flash my flashlight everywhere that I can. Illuminate the scene around me. And I'm just moving it everywhere. This is going to create some light painting effects. And this is what your camera's going to look like when you're doing this. So you're going to want to make sure that you do have a lens hood, because that will protect your lens significantly from water. Just make sure you have a good handle. Wow. See, we have a unique scene here. You can light paint more with this flashlight. Very cool landscape look at it. I'll show you more pictures of that right now. I warm up. Next to the here. Like the fireplace, but it's I also have
That, I thought that was kind of interesting. With the light painting. And then, obviously I wouldn't let my camera get that wet.
So Marty, I really like the snow effects, but I couldn't understand him when he was talking about his camera settings. What was he doing to get that? Just long exposure?
Yeah, he was just doing long exposures. So you have to like, I guess you just experiment with that. So with the streaking of the snow, he was doing the long exposure and then he was light painting or using the flash to get the snowflake. So you would have the little white dots of the snow plus the snow streaks of the long exposure.
Okay.
It's worth something to try. I mean, I was looking for things that, you know, we could try. Now this guy, he was just giving tips. I don't know if you want to watch this because we had that tips in the newsletter last month. But then I also found one where you do some home photography ideas, and some of them can be done like indoors. Some of them were outdoors. There's no talking in this. It's just kind of going through his tips or tricks. So it's up to you. What would you like to watch? This one here is, I think it's like 10 minutes. And the other one is faster. I don't know how long you're talking, Brian, so. Hello, Brian. Hello.
I don't know how long I'm talking either. It just depends on how things go, but so it's up to you. Or you guys, do you want to watch another one of those, or? I think those are cool. Can you put the links to those in the chat as well? That way I can list them up later too.
Sure.
Just as as an additional thing.
Okay, not a problem. Let's we'll do this one.
Okay.
Next, and then. Sorry about the ads.
As you can see, we've got some snow out here today. I want to give you some tips for taking pictures in it. When it comes to camera batteries, extreme temperatures are the enemy. Whether you're in extreme hot or extreme cold conditions, the camera batteries aren't going to be happy there. What you want to do is keep your batteries as close to room temperature as you can. If you're keeping your batteries in an outside pocket or in your camera bag, they're going to get cold and they're going to be amazing. If you keep them in an inside pocket, then you're going to keep your batteries nice and warm. Not only are they going to be handy when you need them, but they'll be kept at a good temperature so they'll last even longer. When it comes to shooting snow, what lens are you going to shoot with? Are you going to bring a wide, a telephoto, a standard, a macro lens? But whatever it is you do decide to bring out, consider bringing a zoom. The reason is you don't really want to change lenses if you don't have to. Not only do you have to worry about falling snow, getting on the sensor or the inside of your lens, you also have to worry about condensation. If you take the lens off on a cold, snowy day, you might end up getting some condensation on the inside of it, even on the sensor. And that's not going to be good for anybody. So if you're out shooting in the winter, consider shooting with a zoom so that you don't have to change lenses. Another lens accessory to consider is not only will this keep the sun from glaring on your lens and creating flares where you don't want it, it'll also help to keep the falling snow off of the front element. You really don't want those snowflakes landing on your lens. They're just going to melt and end up creating smears in your photos. Special camera bodies are both weather sealed and freeze proof, like this Luminar 9 here. But if you're working with a non-pro body, then you may not want to be out in conditions like this with a naked camera. So let's take a look at some options. This is a professional rain cover from a company called Kata. And I honestly don't even know if they make these anymore. I know you can find them from other companies. Kata isn't, but I've had this thing for probably 15 years. This is a cover that allows me to completely weather seal the body, even cinch these cords around my wrist so that I can make sure that no rain or snow gets in there. And because it has a clear plastic bag on the back, I can see through and see what's going on my camera. So this allows me to shoot with just about any camera in any kind of conditions. But these are expensive. And as you can see, this one's quite large and cumbersome. What if you just want something simple and easy to set up? How about a Ziploc bag? All I did here was cut a hole in the bottom of the bag. And truth be told, I just put my finger through the hole and split it open. Wrap it around to cinch it down. The back side of the bag opens up so I can stick my hands in here and the bag is completely protecting the camera. This is a great way to go if you just want to go out quickly in the rain or snow and not have to worry about your camera getting wet. Do this. It's an easy solution. Yeah, shoot with filters all the time, but a snowy day is a great time to break out the polarizer or the variable neutral density filter. The polarizer is going to allow you to cut through the glare, of which there's going to be a lot of on a day like this, and also make your skies a little bit bluer and richer. The variable ND filter is going to allow you to reduce the amount of light coming into the camera so that you can either shoot with a shallow depth of field, even when you're on a really bright sunny day, or if you're shooting stills and you want to shoot long exposures, it'll allow you to do that too. Whenever you're out shooting, it's important to keep your lens clean, but in an environment like this, odds are it's going to get wet and dirty pretty quickly and pretty often. So I recommend keeping at least one, if not a couple of microfiber cloths in your pocket. Keep one that's dedicated just for your lens, so you know that all that it ever touches is going to be the lens itself. Keep another one, maybe a bit bigger one, for the body. This way, if your camera gets wet or covered in dirt or snow, you have a dedicated cloth for cleaning that off with. Challenges when shooting in the snow is getting accurate exposure. And that's because the snow, being so bright and white, really throws off the camera meter. Remember, a camera meter sees the world as 18% gray. So if you point the camera at something that's pure white, like this pile of snow right here, then the camera is going to interpret that as gray and it's going to expose it for gray. Let me show you what I mean. Let's get a picture, just a white ground here, nothing else. As you can clearly see in this histogram, this white snow isn't white. It's leaning much more towards middle gray. So we need to tell the camera to overexpose the scene using exposure compensation. Can you actually do that on your camera? Will depend on your camera. You're going to have to figure that out. But let me show you what happens when we do take the exposure compensation up a little bit. One stop overexposed, and it's about a stop in 2/3. At that point, at a stop in 2/3 or so, we're seeing the white at pure white, possibly even clipping, possibly even going a little bit over. Back to that histogram, you want to make sure that you are not going too far over. If we're shooting raw, remember, we'll be able to pull through that you can use it. We definitely want our shot to be on the bright side. After all, we're shooting in snow. But if it's towards middle gray, by the time you lift it up in post, it's just not going to look good. So overexpose your shots, usually between 1 and 2 stops over, closer to 2, before you're going to find that exact right exposure for shooting in the snow. Should go without saying, but when you're out shooting in conditions like this, you definitely want to be shooting in RAW. Take a look at this example. I shot the same photo in RAW and JPEG, and I've deliberately overexposed the shot. If I try to bring the exposure down on the JPEG, look what happens to the highlights. They're completely clipped, they're lost, they're gone forever. Now let's look at the RAW file. In the RAW file, you'll see that I have quite a bit of detail hidden away in that raw data that I can pull back. Even though the photo is overexposed, I was able to recover it. If you shot JPEG only, that shot would be gone. But by shooting RAW, you're able to save the shot even if you overexpose it by a little bit.
Sorry.
Balance, I gotta be honest, I almost always shoot auto white balance. The camera almost always gets it right, and if it doesn't, it's easy to fix in the computer. But if you do want to get it perfectly right in the camera, auto white balance on a snowy day like this may not be the best place to be. Auto white balance could lean toward blue, so you end up with kind of a cool blue snow. And if you try and compensate go the other direction, you end up with yellow snow, and that's not good for anybody. So how do you set your camera in a mode where you don't have to worry about it too much, but you still get that perfect photo? Flash setting. I know that seems counterintuitive, but flashes tend to be a little bit cool, and so the camera warms up the image just a little bit. You might find that by setting your white balance to flash, you get an image that looks just right. And again, if it doesn't get it perfect, remember that if you're shooting RAW, you can fix it in post anyway, no problem. Snow being predominantly white, your scene's going to be pretty monochromatic. So there's a couple things you might want to consider. Look for some element of color that you can add to your scene, whether it's a red jacket or scarf or just anything that you can find to add that little element of color. It can really make the picture pop. On the other hand, if the scene simply is very monochromatic, consider making it black and white. Black and white snow photography is usually quite beautiful. If you're shooting movies, you have the option at any time to adjust the photography you like. So play with it in color and in black and white and see which one looks better. To tripod for on a snowy day. You've got more light than you can possibly know what to do with on a snowy day, so you don't usually need to stabilize the camera. So remember, if you're taking long exposure, anything that is moving throughout that exposure will get blurry or even completely disappear. So imagine, if you will, that it was snowing right now. It's not, but let's pretend that it was. And I wanted to get a picture of this vista, but I didn't want to have all the snowflakes interrupting the scene. If I take a long enough exposure, all that snow will disappear. So of course, that means the camera's going to have a tripod. That reality. The other thing we're going to have to add is that neutral density filter that we talked about earlier. That will allow us to reduce the amount of light coming into the camera so that we can get that long exposure, allowing us to blur out the snow and make it completely disappear. At the end of the day of shooting in the snow, before you get back inside, it's a good idea to take your camera and put it inside of a plastic bag. So what will happen is when you go into a nice warm climate, or even inside of your car, your camera could start to build up condensation. That condensation could take a long time to dry out. You're better off putting it inside of a sealed plastic bag and letting the condensation accumulate on the outside of the bag. But before you do that, make sure you take out your memory cards. Because if you don't, then you're going to have to wait for the condensation to all go away before you get your memory cards out. You can start editing the photo that you shot today. So go ahead and get that camera into a bag. Fill that bag up tight. Squeeze out some of that air. Now you're ready to take this bag inside. Let the condensation build on the bag and not on the camera.
But I think that'll be it.
They're good tips.
You know what, Marty?
Yes.
He could have saved himself some time if he used a gray card to establish exposure as well as the white balance, rather than fidgeting around with the dials on the camera. So a gray card or white card is, I think, valuable in getting the right exposure as well as the right balance, and not using the automatic white balance, or just trying to use the meter on the camera with reflective light. So that's one point that he could have made.
You forget the easy things. Like there was a couple things on there that was like, oh yeah, I kind of forget about that.
All right, thank you, Marty. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Marty.
Okay. I guess now it is my turn. All right, let me move some screens around here real quick.
I'll put that other video in the link.
Okay, thank you, Marty.
Hey, I know where that's at.
All right, you guys should see a
Mausoleum.
Moorhead Mausoleum is the actual name of the place. You guys seeing that?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Where is it?
Allegheny Cemetery.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So my section tonight is to talk about the masking tool in Lightroom. Masking, selection, that kind of thing. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit, and I'm going to show you a couple quick videos on it as well, because I think they explain it pretty well, probably better than I do. So so Lightroom came out with a new masking tool, and it's pretty damn good. I don't know what else to say about it. I'm pretty excited about it. I've fooled around with it some. I've used it a little bit. Before, we used to go in and we'd go to brush, and then we'd brush in a mask, and we'd fool around with the edges and twists and turns and all that kind of stuff. And it was okay. It wasn't as good as Photoshop, but it works. It worked. They have redesigned it, and it works really well now. And they've added some features to it that I absolutely love, because now you can add and subtract your mask quite easily, or your selection. There's ways of integrating other masks into the mask that you're working on. And it's gotten really cool. So how many of you guys have downloaded the new version of Lightroom at this point, or upgraded to the new version of Lightroom, so you have this mask?
Yes.
All right. So how many of you have messed around with that at all?
I have.
A little bit. Dennis, I figured Dennis would be in there. Rex, I seen his hand up there. Okay. So it's pretty cool.
It is.
And Dennis, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it works pretty damn good too.
It certainly does if the subject is correct.
Yeah. So I picked this picture in particular because if we wanted to select the sky in this picture, that would be a nightmare. Right? Okay, I see
Yeah,
lots of
definitely.
people. I see lots
Oh,
of
yeah.
people's heads shaking up and down. Yes, it would.
Oh, oh, you'll love it. You'll love it.
So in this particular picture, let's say I want to select the sky. So I'm going to go over in the new Lightroom. The mask tool is this round thing right here. I'm going to click on that. And it comes up and it gives me a section of things I can do. I can do a select a subject. I can select the sky. I can brush. I can do a linear gradient. So it put all those things that were extra tools are now under this one spot now, which is nice. I do color range. I can do luminance range. And this depth range, I haven't messed with that yet. So I'm not sure exactly how that works, but let's tell this thing, let's select the sky. So I'm just going to click select sky. And it did its thing and it selected the sky. Fairly good. It's not 100%, but it's fairly good. And it pops up this little toolbox now with your mask in it. And if you're used to Photoshop masking, you see kind of an idea there. You look at that and it's going, okay, I picked this, here's your picture, and I picked this information, and this is the mask. But what's really cool about this is that if I click on that mask, there's my sky that it selected. And let's say I want to add to that now, because obviously it doesn't have all of the sky selected, because there's area down here that's blue and over in here and stuff like that. So we want to get all the sky selected. I'm going to click add. And in this case, I can do a subject, I can do a sky, I can do a color range, luminance. I can add any of these things to my already selected information that Lightroom said, this is what I think is the sky. So I tried a couple of different ones, and I want to show you this. I'm going to do a color range. So I'm going to add a color range. It gives me a little eyedropper. And I'm going to go in here and catch the blue that it hasn't caught yet. Look at that.
Huh.
So now it's selected and added to that sky. That's a pretty good selection of the sky right now. But if I need to adjust that a little bit more, I can come over here where it says refine, and I can bump that up a little bit. And if you watch that happen, it'll start picking up the sky. I'm pointing at the screen like you guys can see that. It'll start picking up the sky inside these tree lines and stuff like that. So if I run this up a little bit and get up into the 80s, look at that. And if you notice, it picked it up inside these little spots inside here. So it has done an amazing job.
The spot I was watching, Brian, was the upper left-hand corner.
Up in here?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, think of the amount of time that it would have taken to sit there and try to pull that sky out.
Absolutely.
I did it in a step and a half. I did it in 2 clicks and a slider, just a little bit. I don't know what to say about that other than wow. Now, once I've got that selected, if I go over here and this little mask toolbar, you can move it wherever you want. If you don't want it on your picture, you can put it in your toolbar over here, which I did just to get it out of the way so you guys can see this. Now I can go over and I can click this show overlay. That's gone. And if I want to make an adjustment now to my mask, and let's say we want to darken that up. I did that extremely so you can see what it's caught, but it is absolutely masked out unbelievably well.
That's cool.
And I got to tell you, I'm excited about this. I really am. And those of you that work with people and hair and stuff like that should be, and Rex, I can see your smile from ear to ear. Should be extremely ecstatic about how well this works, because it is absolutely amazing. So yeah, that's, I wanted to show you that. And I can't believe, I don't know what else to say. You guys can take it or leave it, but I'm going to tell you, man, this is to me, I mean, we've talked and Jim has pointed out AI and all these different things. This is what AI should be. It's using now, I think it's finally, they're using this for our benefit. And this to me is exactly what it should be. I should be able to select some stuff very quickly and very easily.
I think that it gives Photoshop a real run for its money.
I truly do too now. I mean, y'all know that I do 90 to 95% of my editing in Lightroom. We just upped that to about 99% of my editing now in Lightroom. I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to show you a couple videos, and the one video talks about intersecting mask, which is a really cool concept, but he explains it way better than what I think I can. And the example really will show you how well that works. So there's some other things that's going on with this that I haven't showed you yet. That is just, I don't know. You guys can tell I'm excited about this. This is a really, really big deal as far as I'm concerned.
So Brian, the one thing that I noticed about it that I think those of you who are using Lightroom is really a benefit is like where it says mask 1 right now.
Right.
You can name that. And
Right.
so if you end up creating a half a dozen masks, you can now easily switch between masks to do re-editing. Whereas before you had all those pins, and you had to kind of find the right pin to be able to go back and re-edit that.
Absolutely. And that is a good point and good call out there, Jim. Yeah, if you go here to the 3 dots, we've become accustomed to what 3 dots mean. But I can go in and I click on my 3 dots and rename this anything I want. Well, I named it sky because that's what it is. It's the sky. So, and you can do multiple different masks, and you can turn those masks on and off, on. Well, I guess I need to make an adjustment there. We'll do something weird just so you can see. Now, if I go in and I want to see what it looks like without it, with it on, without, with it on. So you can do that. And then if you have multiple parts into that sky thing, you can turn each one of the little parts off too. So there was the extra part that we added to it. Turn it back on. You can see as I turn those things on and off, what it's doing. So, really, really amazing.
That is exciting because I hated masking, so I would stay away from it. So I've never used masks, so this makes it very nice.
So let's
I'm with Morty on that one.
All right, so we used AI out of Lightroom to pick the sky out, and then we added to it. That worked out pretty good. Let's see how this guy does as far as picking a subject out of this picture. So I'm going to go in. I'm just going to click where it says create new mask. I'm going to tell it select the subject. It's doing its thing. It's looking around. Look at that.
Wow, that's impressive.
That's smart.
I like that.
Now, how long would it have taken me to go through there and tell the old way with a brush and get it to select all of that? And when I'm talking select all of that, look at that.
I'm amazed. You know what amazes me is it doesn't even bleed over into the thinnest root branches of the tree.
Right. Now, but I did notice when it did that, it selected this section in here.
Yeah, I did do that.
Okay.
You can suck that out, right?
Yeah, it's no problem at all. I go over and I touch it, I click my mask. Let's rename this guy so we can say that it's a subject, nice and easy. Okay, so we're working with the subject. I'm going to do a subtract, and I'm going to go ahead and pick my brush, and I'm going to use my brush in here to subtract it. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Oh, that was a little too much. Let's get rid of that.
Question. Is there any way you could use the eyedropper and just settle on that area of blue within there without affecting?
You could, absolutely. absolutely.
Oh, okay, okay.
So I'm
So you
gonna
do-
start out with the brush though. So
Sure.
I did a new brush. Let me move this tool out here so I can get to my brush stuff here. I'm gonna do auto mask, and I'm doing a subtract with my brush. Okay, new brush.
Mhm.
If you see there, I don't know if you guys can see that on your screen, but that brush has a little
Mhm.
negative sign there. That tells me that I'm subtracting with that. So I did an auto mask. And see, now it didn't catch into the actual thing, into my subject here.
There you go. And you can set the speed of all that too, right? You can,
Yeah, you can change your flow. Just like before, you can change your brush any way you want. Make my brush a little bit bigger. And we're getting rid of what we didn't want in our mask for our subject. So we're doing this very quickly, very easily, and a whole lot more precise than before in way less time.
I'll stay.
Do you always run your brushes at 100, Brian? That's just,
No, that's just the way they came up. And for demonstration purposes, like I
Sure.
said, if you wanted to bring your feather down and your flow down, then you can get in there and work a little bit more, a little more precisely. But with it being on auto mask, it's picking those edges that you're subject and it's leaving them there for you.
right.
So before auto mask was yes, no, maybe sometimes. Now I think it really is doing a very good job. Get rid of that. Now, that can fit. So now we pulled that section of that out of there. Now we won't work on that. So if I do, I'm going to shut my overlay off and I'm going to go ahead in here and just do a little exposure change so you guys can see. Bring that up. A little contrast in there. Yada, yada, yada. There you go. So now I can work on my sky. Just click on it. Or I can go work on my subject. Or anything else. I can just add another mask in, add another mask in. I mean, we're Photoshop layers right now is what we're at. And it works really well. So I'm excited about this. If you don't already have the download of this, go ahead and get yourself updated to this. It's well worth it. Play around with it. I think it's going to be a game changer as far as the speed at which you can edit a photo and come back and change it. And remember, it's Lightroom, it's non-destructive. So everything I've done, I can just take it and delete it off and go right back to the beginning. It's no big deal. I still got a whole history over here, or I can go in here and shut that off, just on, see what I've done, see if it made it, see if I like my change or not. So very cool, very cool. And there's a lot more to this. My videos are going to show you a little bit more in depth of what of these different maskings and what you can do as far as adding to them. I don't know. I'm excited. I don't know if you guys can tell it or not.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I think this is, in my opinion, this is one of the best updates that they have done with Lightroom in many years. Your thoughts, Dennis, your thoughts, Rex.
oh,
No,
I was,
I agree with you, and it's pretty simple to get basic results out of it.
Yep.
I thought the last upgrade when they did the masks on the sky worked pretty well, where you could, you select the color area and it would select the sky. I found that to work very well, but this is more flexible. You can do more with it. You can subtract from that when you couldn't, and it's amazing, really.
oh, I was thinking about images that I'm going to go back into and do over again better than I had done them before now.
Yeah.
I'll just be able to redo them because, like you said, it's non-destructible. And yeah, I can do them over again, or maybe even make different renditions.
Right, right.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're right, Brian. On a sky like this, a lot of times I just wouldn't be worth the effort to fool with it. It's just too hard to select it.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've seen the very short time that it took me to do that.
Yeah.
So like I said, I think they finally, this is what I expect from AI. This is what I expect from these things analyzing your photos and making changes for you. This is what I wanted, and I'm very happy that this exists at this point. I think Adobe has truly went the right direction with this.
Well, Brian, it's pretty obvious that Adobe was beginning to feel pressure from companies like Skylum, who first started with the AI. Obviously, this is drastically catching up to them and what they can do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And they should have been starting to feel the pressure of it, because the things that Luminar can do and the things that Luminar has in store in the next few months, actually. Jim, I don't know if you still receive all the different emails from Luminar for stuff that isn't out yet, but I do.
Yeah, I have been.
If you've been reading any of that, they got some pretty cool stuff coming. So, you know, Adobe needed to step up, and I think this was a huge step in the right direction from Adobe.
Hey,
Anyhow,
Brian, you don't mind a smart ass question, do you?
no, I'm probably one of the best ones there is at asking them. So sure, go ahead.
Okay. So does Lightroom have an auto straighten feature?
They do.
Maybe you want to use it.
Well, hey, the picture hasn't been worked on.
I'm sorry, that was smart ass, but I couldn't help myself.
No, I did that wrong. Now I forgot how to do it, Jim.
All you gotta do is move the slider by angle.
The angle.
There you go.
Yeah, just move. Yeah.
Is that better, Jim?
I'll crop it.
Thank you.
Does
Mm.
that make you feel better?
It does.
Okay.
Feel
Okay,
free to
now
take Jim's mic off at any time.
Okay, next is the swings and tilts.
Yeah.
You tilt it forward, tilt it further back.
You know, just to break from subject just for a second, but one of the things that I do at work is I do most of the photography for our dealership. And one of the things that happens is always when you sell a car, you have to do a photocopy of a driver's license, and it has to be included in the deal, and it has to be sent to the bank, and it has to be sent to the state. Well, inadvertently, from time to time, the salesman will forget to do that. So they will call their customer and say, hey, can you take a picture of your driver's license front and back and send it to me? Well, there is not a person in the United States that knows how to take a picture of a driver's license that is directly above the driver's license laying on the table. They lay their driver's license on the table, and then they take a picture from the kitchen into the living room on the strangest angles you can imagine. So I would really love a AI version of straighten all the angles up and get this thing back to normal, because I use perspective warp more often fixing a driver's license than I do in any other photography that I do, because they're always weird. And if I send them to the state crooked, like they have to look like they were photocopied, because that's the only thing that they accept. So if I send them to the state and they're crooked like that, they reject the whole deal, and they send it back, and we have to start over again. So I end up doing that perspective correction and warping all the time. I just did one the other day. A guy took it from, like I said, I swear he was in a different room when he took the angle of this driver's license, and I had to fix that. So I would very much like a button that says straighten, perspective, done, and move on. It would make my life a lot simpler with that. But anyhow.
I think, Jim, didn't you a month or two ago have an update on cell phone technology where it was doing something like that, where taking the picture, the AI was happening at the moment you were taking the picture?
Yeah, I don't know about what Brian's asking for as far as a perspective change, but yeah, a lot of the smartphone technology is applying AI. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Probably
Okay.
it's in the future.
All right, so let's pop over.
Brian,
Yeah,
Brian,
yeah.
excuse me, not to get us off topic, but you'd asked me about whether I was keeping up with Luminar. Just a reminder to everyone on the call, Brian posted, just I think within the last week, a link to Luminar. They've got a sale going on for their, I think it's both the new Luminar Neo and the previous still available Luminar.
It is for Luminar AI, Luminar Neo, Luminar AI, and Luminar Basic as well. So there's links there for each one that you want to try out. If you want to pick those up, those are listed. I have those posted on Reddit. Luminar Neo is the new one that's coming. So it's not out yet. There's some beta versions of it out right now. But you can pick it up on sale right now. It'll be coming out, I think it's sometime next month, if I'm not mistaken, Jim.
That's what they were planning by the end of February.
Yeah. So that new Luminar Neo will be coming out then. So there's some pre-sales on that. And like I said, I've got those links posted on Reddit. And if you use the links that are posted there, that works for our affiliate with Luminar, and the Camera Club gets a 50-cent donation from them for you buying it. So,
and just as a reminder, because I think we talked, well, I know we've talked about Luminar in general previously. And I think maybe we mentioned Neo and some of the features they were expecting to have. As much as Adobe is catching up, as you know, Brian has demonstrated here with the masking, Adobe's still a year or two behind what Luminar is doing. And this Luminar Neo is going to have power line removal, touch of a button. Luminar might already have this, where replacing sky, but not only the sky, but reflections in bodies of water. The Neo has what they call relighting, where you can kind of adjust the exposure of objects in the foreground versus the background. I'm probably leaving something off, but it's pretty amazing what it's capable of doing. So if you want to get ahead of the pack, Luminar Neo might be the way to go until Adobe catches up again with them on some of those other new aspects.
exactly. Yeah, the power line removal thing, I think is going to be pretty cool, because it is going to be a click thing, one click and done kind of thing. So, and their update to the beta is, from what I've read, is really good at that. So I'm not sure it would take all the lines out of the bridge behind Rob there, but it'd give it a good try. But anyhow, okay. So let me pull these videos up. One is by Julianne Cost, which I know you've all have heard of her, or have at least seen a video from her. I know that John is a big fan of her. She does some really good videos, a lot of explanations. So she goes through some of the features of the basics part of this. And then the next video, the video right after that I'm going to show, is a little bit more in depth of working with this new masking tool in Lightroom. And I thought they were both great videos that I think should be, can be seen. And of course, you know, if you go to YouTube and type in Lightroom masking, and there's anything in the last like 3 months is going to be about this new tool, because that's about how long it's been out now. And it is, there's, you know, bunches and bunches of videos out there. But anyhow, let's check these out. Let me see. I think I have them in here. Yes, this here. So you guys are looking at YouTube now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this one is Julianne Cost, 8 minutes. And then the next one will be this guy here. I don't know what his name is, Photoshop Cafe. I've watched several of his videos, and he talks about this masking tool too, and he shows a couple of neat things. So let's start out with this one. and you should be able to hear that when I hit play.
Hi, I'm Julianne Cost. In the next few minutes, we're going to get familiar with Lightroom Classic's new masking features. Select the masking icon or tap M to access all of the different masking tools. There are two new tools, Select Subject and Select Sky, both of which make selections using artificial intelligence and machine learning. Next, we have the local adjustment tools, the brush, linear gradient, and radial gradient. And the color, luminance, and depth range mask controls have been elevated to their own tools. To the right of each tool is the keyboard shortcut for selecting that tool. In this image, I'll start by making some simple adjustments. I'll select the brush, and we can see the new masks panel. We can reposition this anywhere in the preview area and even dock it to the panel track. We can use the brush settings to change the size, the feather or the hardness of the brush, and the flow, which controls the rate of application of the adjustment. Starting at the top of the window divider, I'll hold the Shift key and Paint to constrain the brush to a vertical line. By default, Lightroom displays a red overlay in the image to show the areas that are going to be affected by the adjustment. I'll use the right bracket key in order to increase the brush size, and then paint over the second divider. If you ever need to change the color of the overlay, you can click on the red swatch. As soon as I make an adjustment, Lightroom Classic automatically hides the red mask overlay. To show the mask overlay again, we can check Show Overlay, or tap the O key to toggle the overlay off and on. We can also position the cursor over the mask thumbnail in the Masks panel, or hover over the pin in the image area. If I've painted in an area where I don't want to see the adjustment, I can switch to the Eraser tool, and then paint in order to remove the mask. There are several different overlay options that we can choose from the Masks panel. To view the mask similar to a layer mask in Photoshop, we can choose white on black. Where the mask is white, the adjustment will be fully visible, and as the mask transitions from white to black, the adjustment becomes less and less visible. Where the mask is black, the adjustment will be completely hidden. I'll go ahead and increase the brush size and then paint again to make sure that I've removed the adjustment from this area. Then let's switch that back to Color Overlay. And I'll tap the O key to hide it. We can double click on the name of a mask in order to rename it, making it much easier to find if we want to re-edit it later. To toggle the visibility of the adjustment, I can click on the eye icon to toggle it off, click again to toggle it on, or click and hold to temporarily disable it, release the cursor to enable it. To add another mask, I'll click the plus icon and then choose Linear Gradient and drag into the image from the left to right. I can use the pin to reposition it, drag on either side in order to increase or decrease the length of the gradient, and click and drag on the middle line in order to rotate it. I'll use Command Z on Mac, Control Z on Windows to undo that. You'll notice that all of the sliders are set to 0 thanks to the new Reset Sliders Automatically option. Here I'm going to add some clarity, as well as some dehaze, decrease the color temperature, and increase the tint. Now, in order to affect the other side of the image, I could add another new linear gradient, but instead I'll click the More icon and choose to duplicate the mask. Then I'll click the mask to expand it so we can see the linear gradient, use the More icon, and invert it. To quickly reset the sliders, I'll double click the word Effect, and then increase the temperature and increase the shadows. To toggle all of the adjustments applied to this image, I'll use the toggle switch in the upper left of the Masks panel. There's before and after. All right, with this next image, I'll choose Select Subject, and Lightroom Classic will use machine learning to select the subject and displays the default red mask overlay. Here I'll increase the temperature quite a bit, as well as the exposure. I'll increase the highlights and the shadows, and increase the saturation. Next, I'll choose to add the Select Sky mask. Again, Lightroom Classic uses machine learning, this time selecting the sky. And I'll make it a little bit more dramatic by adding some clarity, as well as dehaze. I'll decrease the saturation and increase the noise reduction to remove any noise from the sky. So far, all of our masks have been made from a single tool. However, we can combine as many tools as are needed to create a mask. I'll add a radial gradient, and as I drag out, we can see that the center of the ellipse is what will be affected by the adjustment. If I want to affect what's outside of the ellipse, I can choose invert and then make my adjustment. However, I feel that the radial gradient is darkening the bushes a bit too much. So next to the radial gradient, I'll choose subtract, select the brush, decrease the flow, and then paint to slowly remove the radial gradient adjustment from that area. On the masks panel, we can see the two components that make up the mask, the brush and the radial gradient. I can target them by selecting them either in the masks panel or by clicking on their pin in the image area. To view all of the mask pins and not just the pins for the targeted mask, we can use the More icon and choose to show unselected mask pins. Each component of the mask can be edited independently. For example, if I choose the gradient, I can reposition it as well as resize it and even rotate it independently of the mask that I created with the brush. If I wanted to add to a mask, I could click the Add button. I'll choose Brush, increase the flow, and paint in the road area. If I change my mind, I can always delete an entire mask by clicking the More icon next to the mask and choosing Delete, or I can delete a component by using the More icon next to the component and choosing to delete that component. Next, I'll add a color range mask. Here I can click with the eyedropper in order to select a color. I can hold down the Shift key in order to add up to 5 different colors, or I can click and drag in order to select a range of colors. Here I want to decrease the exposure of the road as well as decrease the saturation. However, I don't want the sky to be affected, so I'll choose Subtract and then select Sky. I can target the color range and then use the Refine slider to either decrease or increase the range of colors that are affected by the adjustment. I'll add another color range mask, and this time I'll use the eyedropper to select these yellow-orange flowers. Then I'll decrease my temperature as well as the tint. I'll increase the exposure and decrease the saturation. And then to add additional colors to the range, I'll hold down the Shift key, click in the yellows, as well as these green areas here to affect them all. To toggle all of the adjustments applied to this image, I'll use the toggle switch at the top of the masks panel. So there's before and after. Excellent. That wraps up this quick overview of the essential masking features in Lightroom Classic. Additional tips, shortcuts, and information on luminance and depth range masking, and a lot more can be found online at jcos.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you're all.
It's amazing.
So, I mean, did you see that? Did you guys watch that? That was a 7-minute video. Did you see how well and how easily that was able to be done?
Yeah.
I think
That was cool.
I couldn't keep up.
Yeah, I'm going to post I will post the links to these videos as well as well, I'll post the links to this video and the next one we're going to watch. But I mean, if you really think about how quickly she was able to do that and add and subtract from each mask quite simply, we weren't able to do that before. I mean, that was a couple hours worth of work that she did in less than 7 minutes in a video. I mean,
Yeah, she's good.
yeah, I mean, she's good, and she's you know, she's an Adobe person and all that, but still, even me, that's going to take me now, instead of it taking me an hour to do that, it's going to take me half an hour to do that. You know, so I think that it's just, I don't know. As you guys can tell, I'm excited. All right, let's watch.
She's been doing them for over 20 years, so
right.
She's good at it. Yeah.
I mean, the part that I'm excited about is how quickly and easily Adobe's picking, she's able to refine her mask and refine what it is that she's working on by hitting subtract and add, and boom, you're done. We've seen how we did that. I mean, I showed you how I did that with the picture of the Moorhead Center. Subtract and add, boom, we're done.
One of the things that I look at is all of the different sliders that are laid out. Just think of all the different things that are available to you in each one of those. Like you could choose the sky, just with the sky, and then you had all of the saturation, sharpness, noise, moire pattern, I can go on and on. Brightness, clarity, just all of it. Everything that's in that panel, everything.
Absolutely. The one thing that really caught my attention there in that video was when she wanted to change the road, and she did a color range. She said, let me pick a color range for this road. And she did. Well, it selected the sky because it was the same color range. So, but she said, well, I don't want to work on a sky. So she she just went in and said, subtract sky. And Adobe went, okay, well, I know what the sky is. We'll delete that from there. So now she was only working on the road, and it subtracted the sky automatically for her. So it wasn't go back in with a brush and do a subtraction. It was subtract sky, and it did it for her. To me, that's the wow part to me, because she was able to select the road by using a color selection, subtract the sky by clicking 2 buttons, and move on with her color adjustment to the road that quickly.
Yeah, she pressed down on the left mouse and then drew it back, and you had this nice square to cover exactly the area.
Right, as well, yes, for color selection too. So I mean, there was that little video right there had so much information in it, and I've watched that video probably 7 times today alone. Just rewatch it and watch it and rewatch it, because there is a lot going on. I mean, like I said, it's an overview, but there is a lot going on in there if you really break it down into the little sections.
It's actually too fast. You need to watch it a couple times.
Yeah, you need to rewatch it. That's the reason I am gonna put the link up there, and then I'll list the link on Reddit whenever I put up the video for this for tonight.
She must have had a full pot of coffee before she did that one. It was smoking.
A lot of her videos, a lot of her introductory videos like that are very quick like that. You have to go back and rewatch them. The nice part about YouTube is you just back it up and start over again. But really, there was a lot of really great information in there about how well this new system works with these masking. So I'm going to highly recommend checking out that video in particular, because like I said, the more I watch it, the more I see as far as how she was able to adjust a single mask into 4 or 5 different types of mask to get what she wanted very quickly and very easily. So anyhow, let's watch this guy. Let's check this video out. I think this one is actually pretty cool too. And
right now we're going to look at the brand new masking inside of Lightroom and Camera Raw. So here we are in Lightroom Classic. It doesn't matter if you're in here or if you're in Camera Raw, it works exactly the same. So all your adjustments that used to be kind of here as separate ones, that is the brush, the gradient, and of course the radial, all live now under the mask menu. So if we click the mask, you have the ability to add the brush, the linear, and the radiant. So these are the tools you've used before. And then range masking is here. But there's 2 new ones here. We've got select sky and select subject. So why don't we choose select subject, and we're going to click, and notice immediately we get our truck here is now selected, and we can see this mask panel pops open. Now you can take this mask panel if you want. You can dock it just by dragging, or you can drag it to the side. Now we have the ability to do a number of different things. This is telling us here, okay, there's a mask. We selected the subject. Now, if we wanted to invert this mask, we could also do that. We click the little button here and choose invert. Now everything is going to be selected except for the subject. Now, if the mask is not perfect, which it isn't here, notice we need to do a little bit of cleaning up. So what we can do is we can choose Add, and then we're going to grab the brush. So now we've added our brush, and notice here's our brush. It works the same as it did before. And I'm just going to now paint in here to select these areas that I want to add to my painting. Now you could choose the auto mask if you wanted and make sure that it detects those edges. And some areas that got missed that shouldn't have been in there, I'm going to hit the Alt or the Option key. And notice normally you would just paint that away, but it's not going to work that way. Now what we need to do is go back to our subject here. And this time we're going to choose Subtract, and we're going to grab our brush. And there's our brush here. And now we can subtract that from the selection. So Add will add to that selection. And Subtract, obviously, is going to take away. So what we're doing is just kind of refining that selection. Select Subject got it most of the way there, but it wasn't quite what I wanted. I don't want to select that. I just want to select the light. There we go. Let's select that light. And then the shadow here. And of course, we want to grab the tire. So if we want to hide this mask, we can do that. We just turn off the overlay. And now maybe we want to darken the background. So watch this. We can adjust this, and just that background is going to be adjusted. So let's just pull it down a little bit. We're going to recover the highlights there. So we're basically recovering those highlights because they were just very, very overexposed. Great. So now if we want to see the overlays again, we turn it on. And I want to create a new mask now. I want to do a gradient. So let's create a new mask, and we're going to choose a linear gradient. So I'm going to drag this gradient, and maybe I want it to go the other way. So let's just drag it the other way instead. So what we want to do is just elongate it and then just drag it up the top here. So what we're doing is we're starting to apply some of the sky here. Let me go really heavy on this. We're not going to go this heavy, but I just want you to see how it's going everywhere, but I don't want it to go into the truck. Okay, so in the past, we would use range masking, or we would brush this out. So let's just make sure we select our mask here. And what I want to do is I want to subtract. So I'm going to choose Subtract. And why don't we select Subject? So now it's going to select that subject, and notice that it's extracting it from, or removing it from, our adjustment. So let's go to our exposure and bring it down where we really would, just a little bit, like maybe there. And you can see how that edge there is being protected. Now, if there's little areas that you want to touch up, like maybe you wanted to darken in here a little bit through the glass, we could also do this. What we would do is just create a new mask in this case. Just grab a brush, set it to auto mask, and let's just paint inside that window. There we go. And maybe even this area back here. Let's select that too. There we go. And what we're going to do is just turn off the show overlay, and then just take the exposure, wind it back a little bit, and see how we can just kind of match that there. So there's a lot of different things we can do with the panel. As you see here, when we create the mask, we get each mask, and as we click on the other mask, it contracts it. See, as we do that, we'll expand our mask and show all the layers in there, and it will hide the other two. What I want to do is we're going to create a mask. So we're going to grab a new mask, and let's do a radial adjustment. Just so I can show you how this works, we're going to grab this radial adjustment. And what I want to do now is I want to just do some adjustments in here. So why don't we hide the overlay for a second? And I'm just going to pump up the exposure just a little bit, just to kind of brighten that, and then warm it up a little bit. Now notice it's also affecting the background. So what I would want to do is I would want to intersect this, so that means I could select the subject only and then have it intersect with the radial. So it's not going to adjust the whole subject, but just the area where I put this radial. Let me show you. So what we're going to do with this is we're just going to choose to intersect mask with, and let's do a select subject. It's detecting the subject, and look at that. So if we look at this now and we go under our radial gradient, look at this. Notice how now it's only affecting where that radial area is, but only on the subject. And the way that's working is because we've got our radial and we've intersected it. So you can see how all the different masking and everything kind of works together inside of here. And remember, this is the same in Lightroom as it is in Camera Raw. So I'm curious, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments underneath. I know you might have to watch this video a few times to really grasp it because there's a lot there, but I don't want to make it a super.
Okay, guys. So the intersecting thing really got my attention because of the way that worked out. I mean, he was able to do the radial tool over top of that, and you could see how that was adjusting in the background. It was changing the colors of the background and stuff like that. And then by him going and adding a intersecting mask to it and telling it as a select subject, it stopped it from touching the background and fixed that. And I was like extremely excited about that. And I'm sure Rex was too.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Definitely.
As a portrait photographer, Rex is thinking, man, if I'd have had this 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
But as a portrait photographer, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And you guys know my, you guys
I
know
guess
how
I'm
much I hate the word.
confused. Sorry.
I can say you guys know how much I hate the word awesome, but that was awesome, amazing, and all those other words that I hate. So go ahead, Rob.
I was just curious. The intersect seemed like a subtract function to me. What am I missing there? How are they different?
Well, I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. You probably could have done that with a subtract the, well, no, if you'd have subtracted the subject from that, it wouldn't have worked. So you'd have had to do a selection of the background and then subtract that.
Yeah, the color, right. That's what I would have done.
Right.
Yeah.
Where by just doing an intersection between the two, it done it automatically for you quicker, one step. Does that make sense?
It does, but I don't have it in my mind when I would use intersect versus subtract. You know what I mean? I just don't know how that would work in my workflow. That's my confusion. I see how well it worked. I see how well subtract worked, but I just don't understand when I would pull the trigger on one or the other. I guess I got to figure that out for myself, but.
Yeah, and like I said, there's an awful lot of what this brush and what this new masking tool can do in Lightroom. So it's going to be a matter of experimenting with it and watching these different videos. Here's a page here. This is Lightroom mask update is what I typed in. And here's videos.
Wow.
All on the new masking tool. So, feel free to go spend the next 25 hours watching YouTube videos of how to use this stuff. Because it's there. I mean, we can go and watch it. So there's lots of videos on it.
But what this really does is it's so quick, and if you get onto it and be adept at it like these folks were, you really don't need to do global adjustments very much anymore, right? That's kind of what this is leading to.
Right.
Be some type of selected adjustment.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So anyhow, as you guys can tell, I'm excited. I think you should be excited about this. It is pretty amazing as far as I'm concerned. So give it a shot, give it a try, watch some videos, update your Lightroom, and see what this is like. I think you're going to enjoy it. I think you're going to like it.
Hi, I'm Julianne Cost.
I'm going to link these. I'm going to put these links up real quick here in chat before we go away. And I'll post them also on on Reddit whenever I post the video later. Okay, there's those 2 links. But anyhow, give it a try. I think it's game changing as far as doing your work.
Brian, if you go up to the little dialogue where it says create mask, I just turned it on and there's like a little, there's 2 little arrows going to the right, and then there's like a little circle. If you click on that, it gives you like the short keys and stuff like that and some learning tools. So just to kind of give you some information, it gives you some references to go to. I just clicked on that.
Yeah.
All right. So
You realize after seeing these videos, I'm not going to get any sleep tonight, right?
well, yeah. So anyhow, that brings us to 9 o'clock. That worked out pretty good. Thank you all for participating. Thank you all for helping out and doing your parts. Marty, Jim, thanks for the questions and everything. If there is anything else for anybody, anybody else have anything they want to bring up before we move on?
Thank you, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, how many of you guys are?
That was great.
Thank you. Thank you. How many of you guys are thinking of doing the walk down at the Heinz History Center?
When is it?
I don't know. Sometime in February.
I think I got it here.
I don't have the date right in front of me.
Sunday, the 27th of February.
Okay, so
Probably me.
That's my birthday. Hey,
27th.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
27th.
All
Let's
right.
see if I can do that at 80.
I'll get some information out. I think it's a great. We've been to the history center before. I think it's pretty cool. So it should be pretty exciting. So, all right. Well, if there's nothing else, I guess we can call it an evening. Thank you all for participating. Thanks for showing up. And I look forward to seeing you guys here pretty soon for the next meeting in a few weeks or a week or so.
Hey, Rob,
right.
we're going to hear about.
What's that?
Have you picked the photographer, or is it going to be a surprise?
Well, I'll surprise you, but I did pick the photographer. I haven't done a lot of work on it yet, but.
Fair enough.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Yeah, Rob's doing the meeting doing the next monthly meeting. And he's going to talk to us about a photographer. We don't know which one. Could be, I don't know. It's hard to tell. He's got someone in mind though. So,
I do. I've done some preliminary work on it. So I guess the question is, how much time should I figure? Like an hour or half hour? What do you want me to do?
Typically we use the second part of the meeting. So an hour.
Okay.
Would be a good estimate.
Okay.
All right. Okay, guys. Anything else?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good night, Dennis.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Brian. Good night, everyone.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Night, everybody. Night, Dennis. See you soon.